What if up to 7% of your DNA came from a human species we've never even found a fossil of? For generations, we imagined human origins as a clean, almost elegant timeline. Homo sapiens rising in Africa, spreading across continents, and occasionally brushing against Neanderthals in Europe or Denisovans in Asia. But the deeper scientists dig into our genomes, the more that tidy story unravels. A landmark 2020 study from UCLA uncovered something astonishing. Several West African populations carry stretches of DNA that do not match any known human species. These fragments come from an archaic lineage that branched off before Neanderthals, before Denisovans, before the branches we thought we understood. And yet, this ancient relative left behind no bones, no tools, no fossils, only whispers encoded in our cells. What we are left with is a true genetic phantom, an entire human population, erased from the physical record, surviving only as molecular shadows woven into the genomes of millions today. Their story is not written in caves or stone, but in the hidden architecture of our blood. The researchers turned their focus to 4 modern West African groups: the Yoruba, the Esan, the Mende, and populations from the Gambia. When they compared the site frequency spectra, the statistical patterns showing how often certain genetic variants appear, they noticed something deeply abnormal. Instead of the gradual curve expected from natural mutation or evolutionary pressure, the data formed a sharp, unmistakable U-shaped wave of derived alleles. That curve was a red flag. It didn't match drift. It didn't match selection. It didn't match any known demographic model. The only explanation that fit was far more extraordinary. At some point in deep prehistory, these populations inherited DNA from a long diverged archaic human, a lineage so ancient and so distant that it no longer exists anywhere except within the genomes of living people. A ghost, revealed not by bones, but by math. When researchers measured the genetic influence of this mysterious ancestor, the numbers were staggering. Depending on the individual, anywhere from 2% to nearly 19% of the genome appears to come from this unknown archaic population, an ancestor with no name, no fossil record, no confirmed homeland. Most scientists lean toward a more conservative average of 6 to 7%, yet even that figure is startling. It rivals, and in many cases surpasses, the familiar 1 to 3% Neanderthal DNA carried by most non-African populations today. In other words, this ghost lineage may have contributed more to certain modern humans than Neanderthals ever did. Such a high percentage suggests not a brief encounter, but a long, meaningful period of coexistence and interbreeding deep in Africa, long before written history, long before our species stepped onto the global stage. The ghost of human ancestry isn't just real, it's influential, and it just raised the stakes dramatically. Genetic modeling pushes the story far deeper into prehistory than anyone expected. According to current estimates, this archaic population broke away from the shared line that would eventually produce both Neanderthals and modern humans somewhere between 360,000 and 1 million years ago, an era when the human family tree was branching wildly across Africa. As for the location, the strongest clues point toward West or Northwest Africa, regions that remain some of the least explored landscapes in the global fossil record. Unlike the Neanderthals of Europe or the Denisovans of Siberia, this ghost hominin left behind no bones, no jaws, no burial sites to mark its existence, no stone tools confidently assigned, no caves etched with memory, just silent genetic fingerprints carried forward by people living today. It is a chapter of human history written without fossils, preserved only in the invisible script of our DNA. With no bones to study and no tools we can confidently attribute, we're forced to reconstruct this lost population through genetic inference and educated imagination. The researchers suggest that these archaic Africans were not the crude, stooped figures pop culture paints when it thinks of cavemen. Their biology hints at something very different, possibly large-brained, tall, socially complex, and capable of crafting sophisticated stone tools on par with the technologies used by early Homo sapiens. In other words, they were not some forgotten rung on the evolutionary ladder. They were peers coexisting with our ancestors, adapting, thriving, and shaping the landscape in ways we may never fully understand. And yet, despite their likely intelligence and social depth, their world remains a blank canvas. We do not know their faces. We do not know their rituals. We do not know the stories they told around their fires. They exist to us only as silhouettes in our genetic memory, shadow figures moving just beyond the light of history. This isn't just academic trivia, it's a story written in the living biology of millions of people today. Some of the genes embedded within these archaic DNA segments appear to have offered real evolutionary benefits. In fact, researchers found that certain adaptive genes in modern West African populations reach especially high frequencies inside these ancient, ghost-derived regions. One standout example is NF1, a tumor suppressor gene. Its enrichment in archaic segments suggests something important. This DNA wasn't simply passed down by chance. It was favored, shaped by natural selection, as if the environment of Pleistocene Africa rewarded those who carried it. That means this lost population didn't just brush against our ancestors, they contributed traits that helped people survive, thrive, and endure harsh climates and shifting ecological pressures. The ghost DNA is not a relic. It is an active thread in the fabric of modern human resilience. These discoveries don't dismantle the classic out of Africa narrative, but they make it far more intricate than the simple model many of us learned in school. Yes, modern humans arose in Africa, but Africa itself was never a single, unified cradle of humanity. It was a vast, dynamic landscape where multiple hominin groups lived side by side, crossed paths, and exchanged genes long before our species took its global journey. Some researchers now argue for a weakly structured stem model, a vision of early humanity, not as isolated tribes evolving in silence, but as semi-connected populations constantly interacting across thousands of miles. Gene flow, mixing, micro-migration, a slow, continuous weaving of lineages rather than a sharp split. In this light, our ancestry is not a clean timeline marching forward. It is a sprawling tree, its roots intertwined, its branches grafted together, its history richer and messier than we ever imagined. If you come from a West African lineage, or honestly, if you're simply human, you carry within your genome a quiet inheritance from a people we have never seen. A hominin species erased from the fossil record, yet still alive in the architecture of our DNA. This isn't some obscure footnote buried in academic journals. It is a central, overlooked chapter in the story of who we are. And it raises questions that cut deep. What did these ancient humans look like when they walked under African suns? What tools did they shape? What myths did they pass down? What challenges did they face that molded the genes we still carry? Why did they vanish without leaving a skull, a hearth, or even a single tool we can confidently name as theirs? And could their bones still lie hidden beneath layers of untouched African earth, waiting for the right hands to finally uncover them? For many of us, modern men of curiosity, here in America, this discovery is a reminder that our roots are not clean, simple, or solitary. They are deeper. They are tangled. They are shared in ways we rarely imagine. We are, all of us, shaped by the shadows of ancestors we never knew. If this peek into genetic ghosts stirred your mind, subscribe to Prehistoric Shadows. There's more to the human past than textbooks show more shadows behind the light. And next time you glance at your DNA, ask yourself, which ghost ancestors am I carrying? Because our story has many voices, some silent, some still waiting to be heard.